Boosty is running a free subscription promotion. You can see all the details at the link in the description under this video. Like the video and write a comment. Enjoy watching. Description: One day, Ino and Naruto wake up in the same bed and find out that they got married, unwillingly and thanks to alcohol. What will their next steps be? And how will they take the news, which is joyful for everyone except them? Prologue. Uzumaki Naruto's apartment had never been particularly neat and clean. On the contrary, ramen wrappers, dirty clothes, unwashed dishes, all of this was an integral attribute of the blonde's home. However, this morning, the morning after the celebration of the Alliance's victory, another blonde miracle was literally lying on Naruto's bed. Yamanaka Ino. The girl rubbed her eyes and looked around. It took only a few minutes for Ino to realize that, firstly, she was not in her own house, secondly, not in her own bed, and thirdly, she was wearing a wedding dress. "What is this?" flashed through the girl's head before she noticed something moving near the bed. Barely reaching the edge, the blonde bent down with difficulty and saw Uzumaki, and he was not in his usual orange set, but in a black suit. "Hey, Uzumaki!" Ino shouted, although it sounded more like a wheeze. "What are you sprawled out there for?" "Huh? What?" Naruto tried to get up, but his attempts were in vain. "Ino? Why are you on my bed?" "I want to know myself," Ino said and collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. "My head hurts so much." She put her hand to her forehead. "What happened?" "Victory?" Uzumaki suggested. "Wait. I remembered. Yesterday we celebrated the Alliance's victory, or rather, the anniversary of the victory." "Yes, and then what?" Ino asked, but the guy didn't have time to answer. Someone knocked on the door, although it seemed to both of them as if thousands of small but heavy hammers were pounding on their heads. "Come in!" the young man shouted and, groaning, rose to his feet. The door creaked, and Inuzuka Kiba entered the apartment with his faithful companion Akamaru. "How was your wedding night?" Kiba asked right away, grinning, while the dog sniffed the smells and wrinkled his nose from the aromas that reigned here. "The first wedding." "What?" The blonde was horrified. "What are you talking about? And anyway, why did you show up so early?" "Well, I wanted to congratulate the newlyweds." The brown-haired man chuckled and pulled out a small folder. "I brought you a gift." "Newlyweds?" Naruto was perplexed, missing the phrase about the gift. "What? What an idiot!" Inuzuka slapped himself on the forehead. "Yes, you. Who else?" "We're not married," the guy protested, although he was already beginning to doubt his own words. "But the rings say otherwise, and the registration with the Hokage too," the dog handler said, putting the folder on the table by the entrance. "Okay, I think I'll go, before you remember anything and start throwing a fit. Oh, and by the way, you'd better drink less next time." When the door closed behind the shinobi, Naruto and Ino looked at each other. "Do you think we really could?" Uzumaki began uncertainly. "I don't know," Yamanaka shook her head. "Until we remember what happened yesterday, we can't say anything for sure," the girl decided. "Do you have any hangover pills?" "No, I don't drink," the shinobi answered with a sigh, examining the suit, which he got from God knows where. The girl closed her eyes. The day was going to be long and difficult. Chapter 1. Unpleasant Memories. Sighing, Ino began to give orders, "So, it's not worth going outside yet. What if there are those who want to congratulate you? It's better to figure it out ourselves first, and then go out into the light. Okay, first we need to freshen up, take a shower, then have breakfast, and then decide what to do." "Why are you giving orders here?" Naruto looked at the girl with displeasure. "This is actually my apartment." "What's the difference?" "March to the bathroom." The kunoichi did not blink an eye. "Although no. I'm first, and you clean up here." Having decided everything for Naruto, Yamanaka proudly retreated to the bathroom. "So I found the boss here," the guy snorted, but he began cleaning, calling 3 shadow clones. In the end, he was not going to clean up himself. While the clones were collecting trash, wiping dust and thinking about what they could make from sour milk and an empty ramen wrapper, The real Uzumaki was walking in circles, holding his head and repeating like a mantra. What happened yesterday? What happened yesterday? Hey Naruto, do you have any extra clothes for me? Came from the bathroom after a while. Preferably clean ones. Haha, funny. The shinobi quipped and went to the closet. Taking out an orange t-shirt and blue shorts, Naruto headed to the bathroom. Will you put them on yourself or should I help you? He asked, remembering a certain moment from a movie he once watched with Jiraiya. He wouldn't have said that if Ino hadn't been annoying him with her instructions. Just like Granny Tsunade, if not worse, Uzumaki grumbled to himself. Oh, how you started talking. Ino did not lose her composure, and her hand stuck out from behind the slightly open door. I can handle it myself. Having given him the clothes, the blonde headed towards the made bed. Now the apartment looked more or less clean, although even such cleaning was done rarely. The shinobi had no time for themselves and their own home. A couple of minutes later, Naruto's clones approached him. You know, with those products that are in the refrigerator, you can immediately lie down in a coffin, said one of them. If you want to kick the bucket, you can calmly eat them. How witty everyone is today, the owner said irritably. That's it. Go for a walk. The guy dispelled the clones and thought about it. But really, what is there to eat? While he was thinking, Ino came out of the bathroom, wiping her wet hair. Uzumaki's clothes were hanging on the girl, and in them, Yamanaka really did look like Naruto's wife. The guy thought that the kunoichi looked at home now. There was definitely something about it. Until the girl opened her mouth. What are you sitting around for? You can go now. Thank you for permission. The completely angry blonde barked and rushed into the bathroom. Did I say something wrong? Ino wanted to answer something sarcastically, but then, after thinking for a bit, decided not to quarrel with the guy. I'll make breakfast. If you find something to cook with, the shinobi answered, still irritated. Yamanaka looked at the locked bathroom door in bewilderment and headed to the refrigerator with a bad feeling. Opening it, the girl almost screamed in horror. The milk, whose expiration date had expired, was slowly spreading, and an empty box of ramen was modestly resting at the very bottom. There were a couple more wrappers, but none of them even hinted at edible contents. The girl took a deep breath and exhaled loudly. It's not a good idea to go out now. I'll have to use a disguise, Ino decided, although she didn't want to walk around the streets. The hangover, albeit slight, was still making itself felt. A cold shower hadn't helped here. They must have gotten really drunk yesterday. Oh, and I need to buy some pills, Ino reminded herself. While the girl was coming up with a new look for herself, Naruto came out of the bathroom wearing only a towel wrapped around his waist. Hey, what's wrong with you? The girl was a little confused at the sight of Uzumaki and, unexpectedly, blushed slightly. You should put something on. I forgot to take clothes. The guy ran his hand through his wet hair, which he didn't even bother to dry properly. Yamanaka couldn't help but think that Naruto had a pumped-up body and a rather handsome face. What are you thinking about? She scolded herself. There's no time for nonsense now. Before the guy had time to reach the closet and the blonde to come to her senses after a moment of confusion, a shadow flashed through the window. Hatake Kakashi was standing in front of the boys with a bag in his hands. Am I interrupting? The shinobi asked, a grin in his voice. Should I come back later? That's not funny, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto was indignant. It's good that you came, and brought groceries. I thought you wouldn't want to go outside for now. Hatake answered and put the bag on the table. You guessed right, Ino muttered. And why did you think so? Do you know something? Both young men stared expectantly at the man. Kakashi was in no hurry to satisfy the boy's curiosity. You don't remember anything? The Jonin answered a question with a question. Of course not, Yamanaka said irritably. As Kiba said, you should drink less. The blonde grumbled discontentedly, taking the groceries out of the bag. The representatives of the stronger half of humanity ignored her words and moved a little further away. What did Kiba want? Inquired the sensei. Just decided to make fun of him. And he brought some kind of folder, Uzumaki said, shrugging his shoulders. A folder? What's in it? I don't know, we didn't look. Kakashi went to the table and took Inuzuka's gift. Opening the contents of the folder, Hatake advised, start by looking at Kiba's gift. Perhaps you will remember last night. What's in there? Ino and Naruto asked in unison. Photos, followed the answer, after which the shinobi quickly retreated. The guy and the girl quickly jumped up to the opened gift, which contained photos from yesterday's party. Two gloomy blondes were sitting on the floor. After looking at the photos, Naruto and Ino remembered what had happened yesterday. Some jerk, probably Kiba, captured almost all of the events on camera. The celebration of the Alliance's victory, the dancing, some ridiculous competitions in which, strangely, Uzumaki did not participate. There were even photos of those who gave toasts. Then came a series of compromising photos, Ino and Naruto going to the store for wedding dresses, then for flowers, then heading to the Hokage's residence, Tsunade's surprised face, the party at the wedding. But most importantly, the guys remembered how it all began. With the announcement of Sasuke and Sakura's wedding. What are we going to do? Naruto asked after they had recovered from the unpleasant news. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've already done the worst. Ino pointed to the wedding ring on her finger. Oh, we're so drunk. That's it, I won't drink anymore. The guy promised himself. Don't say never. We might get drunk again. At their wedding, Yamanaka said moralizingly. How the hell did that big-headed girl manage to lasso Sasuke-kun? Hey, don't call Sakura-chan names. It doesn't matter how much Haruno broke the blonde's heart. Protecting her honor was his sacred duty. How do you talk to your wife? Now Ino seemed like a formidable but cute shrew to Uzumaki. For your information, hubby, she dumped you. The shinobi listened to her with half an ear. He caught himself thinking that he thought the girl was beautiful. No. Of course, Naruto knew that she was considered the first beauty of Konoha, but for him, no one was more beautiful than Sakura-chan. Haku didn't count. And then suddenly the blonde seemed sweet and funny to him. Strange thoughts. Hormones, Jiraiya would say. Go with your hormones. The guy sent his own thoughts. Marriage is evil, Naruto said out of place, in order to completely get rid of this strange obsession once and for all. You don't say it, Ino agreed. And it's still unknown whose wedding is worse, theirs or the future Sasuke and Sakura's. Chapter 2. Divorce, or, the general idea was, we need to get a divorce quickly. And both had the same reason for the breakup. To interfere with Sasuke and Sakura. Although the idée fixe was rather banal and had long outlived itself, the two unfortunates cherished their ordinary revenge and dreamed of ending this whole misunderstanding as soon as possible. However, all this was decided in the heat of emotion and not quite sober state, so no one was responsible for the adequacy of ideas and actions. While Ino was developing a plan to save Sasuke-kun, the guy was sitting at the table and eating ramen. It was easier to think that way. He himself would not mind dreaming about Sakura-chan, but the blonde understood that it was all in vain. And Naruto knew that Ino understood this too, but did not want to accept it. Having decided that he needed a good advisor, Uzumaki decided to turn to the fox. Having plunged into his subconscious, the guy asked, Kurama, are you here? Here, where else would I be? The fox grumbled, and then added, well, you got drunk yesterday, alcoholic. Drinking for a Jinchuriki, by the way, is highly inadvisable. Why is that? The guy frowned, but he had already agreed 1,000 times. He would never drink like that again in his life. Because Abija's head then splits like hell. Kurama growled. Think not only about yourself. Hey, I had good reasons. Naruto objected. Sasuke and Sakura want to get married. What difference does it make to you? You're already married, the fox grinned. You don't know how to drink, Naruto. If you were smarter, you wouldn't come to me with your problems all the time. That's why you came, right? Well, yeah, Uzumaki nodded. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Nothing. Kurama answered and again indulged in his thoughts about the high. What do you mean nothing? We need to go to the Hokage and get a divorce. Then, Naruto began to develop a plan out loud. Idiot! Always think ahead. Why did I get such a stupid one? The fox appealed to the void. Although let him be one who reads rap. What? I can write rap too. Yo, Kurama, help me solve the problem with Sakura and Sasuke, the blonde said and added, Yo. Oh, better shut up, howled Kyubi. For your information, you empty head, my head hurts too. Oh, forgive me, Kurama. I will never drink like that again, the shinobi promised. I don't need your promise. Better listen to me and shut up. Naruto nodded. It's not worth getting a divorce yet. You've already made a lot of noise with your prank. And if you get divorced, then it's a bad reputation. The fox began, but Naruto interrupted him. What do you mean a bad reputation? Oh, Rikudo, why are you doing this to me? The demon howled at the late master of the Six Paths. You want to become Hokage, right? And what do you think, although I doubt that you have such an ability, will you be able to become Kage if your biography includes an item? Got married while drunk and got divorced the next day. I think half the village will consider you, at the very least, irresponsible. Besides, PRSPT with a girl and then dump her. After the war, the relationship between the Biju and his Jinchuriki improved a lot, but a fair amount of drinking clearly had a bad effect on the fox's mood, since he was more sarcastic than usual. What? Uzumaki's eyes widened to incredible sizes. You, be careful with your words. Nothing happened. Oh, really? Kurama raised an eyebrow. But the villagers don't know about it, he grinned. In short, don't get a divorce until the time comes. And when will it come? Naruto asked curiously. When it's necessary, came the short answer. Realizing that he wouldn't get more from his demon, the blonde emerged from his subconscious, returning to the crazy world of the present. Opening his eyes, the shinobi realized that while he was going down to visit Kyubi, he froze in reality, never bringing the noodles to his mouth. Ino was sitting opposite him and looking at him with interest. When she saw that he had woken up, Yamanaka asked, Why are you hanging around? He was talking to Kurama about our situation. Exo, the ramen has gone cold with his conversations. Naruto sighed in frustration. Let me warm it up, the girl offered in a proprietary manner. What did he say? And what do you think about the divorce? Don't say it was my idea. Say that you don't want to get divorced yourself. And why think for yourself? Fox's voice sounded in his head. I think that we shouldn't get divorced. For now, at least. Some time later, having put the warmed ramen on the table, Ino sat down and carefully looked at Naruto. For some reason, Uzumaki felt uncomfortable under her keen eyes. A slight shiver ran through his body, and the guy fidgeted in his chair. Maybe you're right, Ino finally answered after a whole minute. I also thought that it was a bit hasty, especially since we've already made a mess of things. But what are we going to do? Naruto thought about it, and really, what should he do now? And in general, how can he live on when his beloved girlfriend is marrying his best friend, and you yourself stupidly married your beloved's rival, who also loves your friend? Yeah, some kind of love quadrangle turned out. And Naruto didn't know how to solve such a problem, since he had always had trouble with math. Just act like nothing happened. As if it was all planned that way. Ino, what if we pretend like it was all planned that way? Let's not show that this was all due to drunkenness and an accident. The blonde suggested an idea to Kyubi. Ino shrugged her shoulders uncertainly. What about Kiba and Kakashi-sensei? They already understood that we didn't get married out of great love, and my head. Sakura will probably understand too. The kunoichi corrected herself, remembering how fiercely Naruto defended his former partner. For some reason, it was unpleasant to realize this. Well, if we pretend well, then we can blame our morning reaction on the alcohol. Especially since it's almost true. The Jinchuriki shared his thoughts. I think this is the best way. Oh, okay. It's the best thing to do anyway. Well, then we need to practice. Practice? Uzumaki was perplexed, although his premonition and the fox's snort suggested something bad. Well, we are, of course, comrades. We've been through a lot in the war and all that. I mean, we can take each other's hands, hug and all that stuff, and not fidget like little children? But training still wouldn't hurt. Just for prevention, Ino said in one breath, blushing slightly. Either from such a fiery speech, or from the idea itself. The blonde looked at her with wide eyes and tried to comprehend what was said. The girl waited patiently, but the question that came out caught her off guard, and we'll have to kiss too. And why was he considered stupid? Naruto could sometimes blurt out such things, the very essence, in general. Both were somewhat embarrassed, and did not dare to look at each other. The situation was, let's say, ticklish. We can postpone kissing for a while. Ino finally broke the awkward silence. And the guy thought that despite her self-confidence and impudence, Yamanaka could blush cutely and vigorously tug at the edge of her t-shirt, which showed some degree of uncertainty. It was entertaining and funny in its own way. Okay. Let's think about it later. It's probably better to think about housing now. Naruto changed the subject so as not to embarrass the girl. What do you mean? Ino immediately perked up. There was no trace of her previous embarrassment. Well, you probably don't want to live here, right? The shinobi scratched the back of his head. You're used to more spacious rooms, and it will be a bit dirty here. Although you can get used to it. I think it would be better to move to the Yamanaka district, the blonde answered after thinking for a bit. It doesn't matter whether I got married or not, I'm still the head. So today we'll pack your things and come to us. In fact, the girl wasn't sure about the correctness of such a decision, but until they got divorced, they needed to live together. Although if Naruto moved to the Yamanaka district, then it would mean a lot, including the seriousness of their relationship, and in general. Yes, Kami with that. A wedding is too serious. Don't be afraid, Ino. The kunoichi encouraged herself. Perhaps this will be interesting. The fox chuckled. Chapter 3. Moving, or welcome to the Yamanakas, the preparations were short, because Naruto had very few things. Ino decided to throw away her wedding dress, as well as Uzumaki's tuxedo. Firstly, it was almost impossible to choose suitable clothes when drunk, and secondly, she did not want to remember the reason for their spontaneous wedding once again. In fact, Ino, in principle, did not object to Naruto being her husband. He was a handsome, strong guy, a war hero, after all. One bad thing the former Yamanaka always wanted to marry for love. Sasuke. Well, first love after all. Although she somehow never thought about why she was in love with him before. He was strong, handsome. Stop! Then Naruto would have suited her too. Probably, I just like brunettes better. Ino decided for herself, packing the dress in a bag. Ready? She asked the guy who was explaining something to his two clones. What are you doing? Yes, I'm ready. Naruto turned to her and explained. I just don't want to be pestered with unnecessary questions. So the clones will pretend to be us. Well, just you in this case, there's no need to turn into me. So, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah? Anyway, the clones will answer all the questions. And we'll calmly get to the Yamanaka district under the henge. Not a bad idea. I really don't want to answer stupid questions right now. The blonde nodded. Exo, my head still hurts. Maybe we'll stop by the store on the way? Naruto agreed, and together, disguised as a middle-aged couple, they quietly left Uzumaki's apartment. His clones, one of whom turned into Ino, headed towards the center of the village. They decided to check out the situation and find out who reacted to their wedding and how. The real blonde was carrying a small bag with his belongings and looking at the area he visited the least often. Somehow, he rarely went to the Yamanaka, Nara, and Akimichi clans, which were located next to each other. And to all the others, too. Then a small flower shop appeared, where a shinobi sometimes went to please Sakura, who did not appreciate the signs of attention, and generally threw flowers, and painfully. Naruto did not buy roses anymore. I have completely abandoned the store lately, Ino said sadly. Of course, there are workers, but still they do not understand this as well as I or as Dad understood. She turned away and sighed deeply. The last thing she needed was for the technique to fall asleep from losing control of itself. You were probably busy with clan affairs? Naruto did not know what to say. I could help with something. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head, which looked pretty funny in the form of a stern 45-year-old man. Thank you, the girl smiled. Here we are. Behind the store was the Yamanaka Quarter, which began with a row of small houses. Ahead, in the very center, was a large house decorated with fruit trees and numerous and varied flower bushes. The guys had managed to stop by the store for a hangover cure, throw out the ill-fated wedding suits and buy some groceries before coming here. Wow, is this your house? Uzumaki's eyes widened when they approached the center of the quarter. How big? In fact, it is much smaller than the Hyuga. They have the highest population, and they are rich, Ino explained, slightly embarrassed and touched by the guy's words. Is that true? I didn't know. Well, for me it is big in any case. You have seen my home, the Jinchuriki laughed. Ladies first. He gave up his seat to the girl. Thank you. The former Yamanaka smiled back and stepped onto the threshold of her native Penates. The house smelled of flowers and freshness from the wide open windows. It was cozy and comfortable here. It was immediately obvious that a woman's hand had done its work. Beautiful, delicately colored wallpaper, lilies of the valley and violets in vases, various decorative ornaments. Taking off her henge, Ino took off her shoes and put them in the closet. Naruto followed her example. When they were about to go to the kitchen to put the groceries in, Ino's mother came out. She was a stern-looking woman with chestnut hair pulled back into a bun and brown eyes. For some reason, Uzumaki became nervous. After all, it's not every day that you meet the mother of your wife. Don't worry, Naruto. You're all heroes like that. When it comes to going to war, you rush headlong, but when it comes to meeting your mother-in-law, you run away. Kurama grinned. Oh, Mom, are you here already? We're here with groceries. Ino began, scolding herself for completely forgetting that her mother was supposed to arrive this morning. After her husband's death, she often traveled to other cities due to various conferences dedicated to ikebana or new varieties of flowers, while her daughter was busy with clan affairs. The newlyweds have arrived, Yamanaka Arisa said calmly. Well, come in. Why are you standing at the threshold? Is your mother always so calm? Naruto whispered as they slowly walked into the kitchen. Usually yes, although I thought that she would react more emotionally, the girl answered honestly, putting the food on the table and taking out the contents of the bags. How was the ikebana exhibition, Mom? Better tell me, dear, why did I, having come home from the land of waves, find out that my daughter got married? The woman inquired, sitting down on a chair. Couldn't you have calmly spent 3 days without me? I'm sorry, Mommy! Ino suddenly exclaimed and looked at Arisa with eyes full of tears. It happened by accident. We didn't mean to. So, it's because of... At first, the blonde thought that his wife was just pretending so that her mother wouldn't get too angry. However, it seemed that the girl had really broken down. She began to breathe deeply and could no longer speak coherently from sobbing. He quickly ran to the tap, grabbed a clean glass, and filled it with water. Approaching Ino, Naruto helped her drink the water and sit down on a chair. And then, sighing, he turned to his mother-in-law. Forgive us, he bowed, we were not aware of our actions. But believe me, I am serious about your daughter. And therefore, I ask for your blessing, although it's too late. Uzumaki finished his fiery speech, deciding that, except for them, no one should know about the true reason for their hasty wedding. You're right, Naruto. Good for you for catching on so quickly. I'm surprised. You're usually such a layman when it comes to relationships with girls. Fox commented sarcastically. Seriously, you say? Arisa looked closely at her new son-in-law. I've never heard of my daughter dating a war hero before. I've only heard Sasuke-kun and Sasuke-kun from her. But this is how it really is. Mom. Ino finally calmed down and pulled herself together. Mom, please don't be mad at us. I'm not mad. After all, you're already an adult. Her mother sighed. I stopped taking care of you when you went to the academy. You wanted to become a ninja, and excessive care could have done harm. I just hope that I won't have to wait for grandchildren anytime soon. What? No. Mom, we don't. It's too early. The blonde was indignant. Mom, I love you so much. She rushed to the woman and hugged her tightly. I'm so glad that I have you and that you're so understanding. Mrs. Yamanaka stroked her daughter's head and smiled slightly. She looked at Naruto and said, You're a member of the family now, come here. Uzumaki slowly approached and hugged his mother-in-law. He felt a strange sense of peace and some tenderness towards this woman. Despite her stupidity, she did not blame her daughter. On the contrary, she treated him with understanding and even accepted him as her son-in-law. It was unusual, but he certainly liked it very much. Welcome to the Yamanaka, Kurama said, and Uzumaki felt him smile. Chapter 4. Almost like family. When Ino showed Naruto their room, the guy was very surprised and happy. The entrance to the bedroom was through the door, but the room itself was divided into two parts using shoujo. As it turned out, the first half contained a bed, a wardrobe and a dressing table, and the second a desk and equipment for practicing the art of ikebana. Uzumaki's surprise was caused by the fact that the second part, given to him for possession, although it was only half, was many times larger than his hovel. Can we buy a bed for you later, while you sleep on the futon, okay? After an agreeable nod, the girl continued formally, We are still married, so we are entitled to a separate room. And so that no one has any questions, the shoujo can be attributed to the fact that my mother is against grandchildren at such a young age for us. Moreover, it is true, Ino explained. The first wave of embarrassment passed, and the kunoichi was no longer embarrassed in front of Naruto, and he somehow got used to the idea that he was now married. Although it still sounded unusual. Everything suits me. The guy smiled. He suddenly thought about it. Something wrong? Ino asked, entering the room and going to the closet to get bedding for the blonde. I somehow didn't think about how to dispel the clones so that no one would notice. Or wait until the technique wears off on its own. But that takes a long time, and so it will be strange if someone comes in and sees us here, although we are supposed to be in the square. Naruto outlined his conclusions. Oh, Baka. That's a problem indeed. Maybe we should go to the square under the henge again and find the clones? Ino suggested, but she didn't want to go anywhere at all. Let's just wait it out. The thoughts of both ninja coincided. To be honest, I don't want to go outside, Uzumaki said, scratching the back of his head. And who would come in? We're supposedly walking in the center of the village. Then let's go cook dinner. Mom's tired from the road. The kunoichi left the room and headed to the kitchen. Naruto caught up with her, and for a while they walked in silence until the Jinchuriki said, I liked your mother. She understands and respects your choice. Thank you, Naruto, was all the girl could answer. And again, an awkward silence reigned. When they arrived in the kitchen, to her surprise, the girl learned that Naruto knew how to do more than just brew ramen. He offered to cook boiled rice with curry. Ino agreed and began to make the sauce, cutting chicken fillet, and the guy put rice on the stove and began to prepare the side dish. When everything was ready, Lady Yamanaka came, called by a hungry stomach and a fragrant smell. Having thanked the guys for their efforts, Arisa ate the prepared food with pleasure. Ino and Naruto did not lag behind her. When they finished with lunch, the blonde washed the dishes, and she and Uzumaki went up to the second floor to their room. Having entered and closed the door behind her, the girl asked what the guy would do now, and in general, what he did in his free time from missions. Usually I train, answered the Jinchuriki, pushing aside the shoujo. I will probably meditate a little now. And what will you do? I need to take care of the clan's affairs. So until the evening I will be buried in paperwork, and after yesterday's party there are probably a lot of slackers left who are now lying around at home. The kunoichi laughed. When the clones disperse, can you call me? I want to find out what is going on in the village. Naruto nodded, and everyone went about their own business. Towards evening, the clones dispersed, and Uzumaki called the girl. Having gone to the second half of the room, Ino sat down on the spread-out futon and began to listen to her husband. So first, we went to the square, Naruto began. Almost everyone congratulated us, mostly civilians. On the way, we met Kiba, Shino, and Hinata. We explained with Inuzuka that the morning bewilderment was caused by alcohol and that our wedding was not the result of unhappy love and a huge drinking bout. Shino also congratulated us, and then Kiba and Hinata. Oh, what idiots we are! Ino suddenly hit herself on the forehead. I completely forgot that Hinata is in love with you. And you, Naruto? Or maybe you didn't know until now? The blonde looked at him suspiciously. I knew. I heard when she confessed to me during Pain's attack. The Jinchuriki answered reluctantly. But what could I say then? I don't love her, and I didn't want to give her false hopes. And now it's too late to say anything. Ino remained silent, and the guy continued. Okay, after them, we went to Ichiraku. Old man Tuchi-san also congratulated us and gave us free ramen. And then we just walked around Konoha. We didn't meet anyone else. Okay, it's already evening, let's go cook dinner. Ino commanded and stood up. Naruto obediently followed her, thinking to himself that he had almost gotten used to this, cooking together, taking orders from a girl who imagined herself a leader. She was funny and sometimes irritating. Although now Uzumaki couldn't call her hysterical like he used to. She was a sweet and kind girl. Maybe Ino had just grown up. Or maybe he had matured. The guy had often eaten with someone before, more often with Irika-sensei, and then with the team, but it was not like this. Sitting at the table with Yamanaka and her mother, the Jinchuriki felt somehow at home, like a family, like in another reality, where Tobi had once thrown him and Sakura. He probably would have stayed there, but that place was not for him. And here, even if it was not quite real and they were not a full family, there was something definitely close in this. After dinner, everyone went to their rooms. Having wished Ino good night, the blonde went to his half and lay down on the futon. This strange day was coming to an end, and there was not a single eye that could sleep. Naruto put his hands behind his head and began to count the tails of the bijou to himself. 1 is Shikaku, 1 and 2 is Matatabi, 1, 2 and 3 is Isabu, 1, 2. Shut up and sleep. Kurama growled. We're not sheep for you to count us and our tails. Sorry. Uzumaki apologized. The first thing that came to mind. Then 1 kunai, 2 kunai, 3 kunai, don't have anything else to do? Kurama asked sarcastically. So there's a girl next to you. Your wife, by the way. Do your marital duty. Get lost. Maybe you should look for a fox? The shinobi returned the favor. We still need to look for one worthy of me. Kyubi said. Do whatever you want, and I'll go to sleep. Just don't count anymore, you're bothering me. Naruto sighed, but stopped counting. It wasn't helping, especially not. Kurama's words made him slightly embarrassed, but he didn't take the fox's words seriously. The bijou liked to make fun of him. However, the blonde still turned his head towards the other half of the bedroom and noticed a small light from the lamp coming from the other side of the room. He rose from the futon in surprise and pushed the shoujo apart. Ino was sitting near the dressing table, looking at the mirror as if frozen. Ino? Naruto called, coming closer. The girl turned around and said a little guiltily, Did I wake you up? Sorry. Yamanaka's voice was unusually sad and tired. No, I still can't sleep. Did something happen? He noticed that she was clutching a comb in her hand, which never served its purpose, since Ino's hair was disheveled and in disarray. You know, Dad always used to comb my hair at night. It was our tradition. And after his death, I have to collect my thoughts for a long time to let go of the memories. Stupid for a ninja, right? She smiled tightly and looked in the mirror again. No, I often can't sleep either, remembering my parents. Naruto said after thinking for a while, and then added, "Let me help you." The girl, if she was surprised, did not show it, but only nodded in agreement. Uzumaki came closer and, taking the comb, ran it through her hair. It was soft and smelled nice. "Tell me about your parents," Yamanaka asked after a minute. "I don't know much about them, but even that's enough for me," the boy began. "My mother's name was Uzumaki Kushina. She came to Konoha." Outside the window, the wind ruffled the remaining leaves of the trees. A lamp was burning in the room, and Naruto, running a comb through Ino's light hair, was telling about the fourth Hokage and the bloody habanero. Chapter 5. A tense mission. Naruto was sweetly basking under the blanket, when behind the wall, or rather the shoujo, he heard noise and rumble, followed by swearing. "Kurama, it seems we were attacked." "Where is my kunai?" Uzumaki responded languidly. "You're just a dumbass. Open your beautiful eyes and start thinking," advised the fox. The guy reluctantly opened his eyes and tried to understand where he was and whether Armageddon had happened. After 5 minutes of stupor, the shinobi finally figured out that this was not his apartment. Another minute later, Naruto remembered the events of yesterday, or rather, the day before yesterday, and realized, behind the Fusuma, Yamanaka Ino, his wife, was now thundering and screaming loudly, who, before Uzumaki had time to properly formulate the thought, flew into his half of the bedroom and quickly chattered, "Get up and get dressed. Quickly! We're late! Come on, like a true shinobi, be ready in 20 seconds. And also on a high-speed wave, she flew out of Naruto's room, leaving the latter to blink his eyes in surprise. "Why are you hanging?" Kurama butted in. "You have 15 seconds left." The blonde froze and began to get ready. It seemed he understood the girl's haste. Today was the 12th of October, and according to tradition, a very young tradition, it was worth noting the Hokage was holding a council, which everyone, from young to old, had to attend. Looking at his watch, which showed 20 minutes past 7 in the morning, Naruto jumped up as if scalded. If they were late, they would be in trouble. Having shown true ninja bearing, the two blondes briskly rushed to the Hokage's residence. As it turned out, not only they were late, but also Inuzuka Kiba and Rock Lee. Having quickly greeted each other, they hurried to the fifth's office. Tsunade was peacefully saying something when a tornado seemed to fly into her office, sweeping away everything in its path: flowers, chairs, sakura, and Hinata. Sasuke could have been added to this list if the latter hadn't jumped back in time. A true shinobi is always ready. Having measured the four who flew in with a disdainful look, Uchiha snorted and muttered something like, "As always, you stood out." However, the latecomers were awarded not only Uchiha's, but also Senju's displeased look. "I hope that you weren't on a friendly bender," the head of the village drawled sweetly. "Otherwise." "No," the four ninjas shouted in unison. "Sorry for being late." "What unanimity?" Sakura whispered in Sasuke's ear, who shrugged his shoulders vaguely. "Now, if you don't mind, I'll continue," Tsunade said sarcastically. "Before we were interrupted, I was talking about the unstable situation on many borders, which also means that many orders have been received to escort people to this or that place. There is still a lot of work to do with buildings and strengthening the defenses. Now I will give you tasks." "Sorry, Tsunade-sama," Shizen interrupted her. "You forgot to say the most important thing." "Oh, yes. Thank you, Shizen. Starting tomorrow, Hatake Kakashi will be an advisor along with Shikamaru," the woman said, watching the reactions of everyone present. However, no one was particularly surprised that Kakashi was appointed, but many were perplexed as to why another advisor was needed at all. "Why me?" Hatake was the only one who was unhappy with his new position. After all, it was unnecessary worries. "Because you'll be replacing me as Hokage," the fifth answered casually. "And me?" Naruto butted in, glaring at the head of the leaf like an offended kid who's had his candy taken away. "Then you too," the Hokage said wearily. "Wait until you're at least 21. That's it, the topic is closed. Now the missions. Kiba and Hinata, you'll accompany the Iwasaki couple to the land of grass. Tsunade looked through the papers with the missions. Lee, Ten, Guy, and Chuji help with the construction of the barn in Tanzaku. Ino and Sakura go to Suna with valuable medicinal herbs and help their medic Nin. They have a lot of poisonous snakes there. Their bite is not so deadly, but without our help the Suna people may not survive. Sasuke, Naruto, you will accompany the girls and at the same time help in exterminating the creeping creatures. Proceed to the tasks, the blonde gave the order. The rest will be given missions after lunch. And yes, Shikamaru, Kakashi, you stay. We need to discuss something. With doomed faces, Nara and Hitaki saw off their departing friends. Naruto and Ino exchanged nervous glances. This was truly one of the most difficult missions on their account. Sasuke and Sakura calmly walked ahead, not paying attention to their frozen comrades. Why are you standing there like a dead man? Kurama asked. But Naruto did not have time to think and form a thought, as the fox interrupted him. So you're an idiot. And your Ino is also good. What were you both thinking about? Well, let this Uchiha guy with the pink-haired girl be your passions. You don't need to think about that, idiots. Kyubi managed to offer friendly support, albeit in a very veiled manner. What about? The shinobi was perplexed, although he felt a little better. It wasn't difficult to understand the fox's hidden subtext. You shouldn't do anything bad there. You shouldn't rush to those two with a confession of eternal love and with words that your blonde wedding is a fiction and a mistake of drunken freaks in delirium. I know what you managed to think about. You and Ino are married, your friends are busy with each other. Now you should only be connected by friendship. The demon moralized. Naruto felt ashamed. He really was thinking about explaining himself to Sakura. Of course, he and Ino decided yesterday that they would not advertise their true relationship, but still, seeing Sakura and Sasuke together, it was as if he had gone crazy. After all, he really loved the girl with pink hair. In contrast to Uzumaki, the blonde was thinking about how she could avoid losing her temper and punching Haruno for her cute chirping with Sasuke-kun. Naturally, Yamanaka wasn't going to say anything to Uchiha, it would have been pointless. On the periphery of the kunoichi's consciousness, she managed to understand that seeing, let it be her beloved with a rival, was not as hard as she had assumed. Maybe I don't love him that much? The preparations were short. An hour or so later, the honest company of shinobi and kunoichi Irainen set off. Birds were singing, forest animals were jumping on the branches, the sun was cheerfully lighting the way, and dark clouds thickened above the four Konoha members, just trying to spill out a series of unspoken words and old resentments. Each of them had something to say to each other. Except, perhaps, Uchiha Sasuke. He, as always, was unperturbed, calm, and detached from the world. Sakura, together with Yamanaka, walked slightly ahead and chattered incessantly about preparations for her own wedding. The blonde wanted to kill her ex-girlfriend. Either Haruno was really such a bitch that she tried to show her superiority with such conversations, or she was so happy that she couldn't help but talk about it to the whole world, and the world, represented by Ino, was already slowly boiling and thinking about murder, about where to hide the body better and how Uchiha wouldn't find out about all this. Somewhere deep inside, the kunoichi was happy for Sakura and would have told her this personally if they were still friends. However, pride and resentment didn't allow it. It wasn't even about Sasuke himself, or about him. Ino, completely confused, stopped thinking in this direction and turned to the guys, who were going through their own emotional internal storm. Naruto exuded an evil aura of discontent, which unsuccessfully hit the cold wall of Sasuke's rejection. Uzumaki confessed to his wife that it would be better not to see his friend rival for another week or two, because during that time he would have time to think everything over and decide how he felt about this whole situation and how he would behave with his former teammates. Then, though Yamanaka couldn't hear it, Kurama noted that even if a month passed, the blonde's stupid head would hardly think of anything reasonable and useful. Hey, why are you all hesitating there? Sakura asked her fellow travelers. The girl was unhappy with the realization that for the last 10 minutes she had been shaking the air that was indifferent to her with her stories, since Ino had long since stopped listening to her and was walking slightly behind, and Naruto and her beloved Sasuke were still dragging along at the very end, not even intending to speed up their pace. "I'm tired of listening to your annoying trill, big-headed one," Yamanaka admitted honestly, measuring her ex-girlfriend with an unreadable look, from which a herd of hard-working insects still ran down Haruno's back. "I think if we hurry, we'll be in Himachi by tomorrow morning." Sasuke, declaring himself the leader of the group, announced to everyone, ignoring his fiancée's question. "So less chatter." "Yes, Sasuke-ku." "Sasuke." The fifth student nodded humbly. The blondes didn't answer, but they didn't object either. No one wanted to talk now. The sun was shining brightly, trying to drive away the clouds that had gathered over the boys' heads. However, the idea turned out to be useless, because everyone was stubborn as hell and didn't want to make contact. In such a tense atmosphere and oppressive silence, the guys walked the rest of the way to Himachi. Even Kurama did not dare to insert his bold word, but this was more from laziness and unwillingness to hammer something into the head of his Jinchuriki. And this was only the beginning of the mission. "Dobe, let's go to the training ground," these are the words that Uchiha Sasuke greeted the sleeping Uzumaki with in the morning. Having decided that it would be wiser not to put the newlyweds in the same room, since the remaining two were not yet married, the guys were divided the old-fashioned way, boys and girls separately. Naruto looked at the brunette in bewilderment. He chuckled and left the room, throwing out a phrase that made the blonde's eye twitch nervously. "Be ready in 10 minutes. PFF, so I'm off. I won't follow his orders." The day was hopelessly ruined. The Jinchuriki caught himself thinking that he was angry at Sasuke. However, the fox's voice in his head did not allow him to understand why. "Go and stretch. It's good for your head." After all, Kurama was right in some ways, so Naruto reluctantly got up and began to get ready. 10 minutes later he was completely ready, and 5 minutes later the two rival friends were standing on one of the training grounds in Himachi and glaring at each other. Well, at least from the blonde's side. Sasuke, as usual, was bestowing his irritating composure on the world around him. "You wanted to fight, so why did you stand up?" Uzumaki was the first to lose his temper. "I didn't say we were going to fight," Uchiha drawled slightly sarcastically. "I wanted to talk. Shall we sit down?" He nodded towards a nearby tree. Uzumaki agreed distantly, surprised by his friend's peacefulness. They sat down and silently stared ahead. After a while, Sasuke began to speak. "Why do you think I chose Sakura?" "How should I know?" Naruto flared up, angry that he even came here. The conversation had been taking an unpleasant turn for him from the very first minutes. "Calm down, Do. Why are you so angry?" Uchiha asked mockingly, knowing full well the reason for the blonde's anger. "Or do you have some feelings for my fiancé?" That's not good. You have a wife yourself. What do you want, team? Get to the point." "You've been too talkative today," the Jinchuriki said, having calmed down after Kurama's words. "Think sober, idiot! Why did you get married?" the brunette asked directly, having become more serious, looking into the blue eyes of his friend rival. "None of your business," the guy muttered. "What difference does it make to you?" "None," the last representative of the extinct clan answered calmly. "Then why are you asking? And how am I to know why you chose Sakura?" "You're on edge now and are unlikely to accept my arguments," Sasuke reasonably noted and stood up. "I just don't want you to be angry about this, Do. We'll talk later." Naruto looked thoughtfully at the back of the retreating shinobi. A bunch of questions were spinning in his head. What was the point of this conversation? Why? Arguments? Not to get angry? Naruto howled, confused. What did he want from me? "You won't understand the subtext," Kyubi also explained vaguely. Spitting on them all, Uzumaki headed towards the hotel where they were staying. It was time to set off again. There were still 2 days ahead, including this one, and they hadn't even reached Suna, and the Jinchuriki wanted to finish this mission already. And the morning was just beginning. "My legs!" Sakura said blissfully and sprawled out on a log that was conveniently located at the place where they were camping. They hoped to reach the borders of the Land of Wind by noon tomorrow, which Naruto was incredibly happy about. He would be able to see his other best friend and take his mind off the events of the last few days. And there were plenty of them. The failed conversation with Sasuke, Sakura talking left and right about the upcoming wedding, and yesterday he accidentally saw his two former partners in the CL. After that, his mood dropped below the baseboard. Plus, not a single impudent word was heard from Ino, and in general, Yamanaka was surprisingly silent. Although the guy did not want to discuss their entire difficult situation with her anyway. Either it was awkward, or his wife was not the best conversationalist at the moment. Kurama was not even worth asking. He would crush him with his sarcasm and mockery. Night was approaching, and everyone had scattered to their sleeping bags. Only the blonde couldn't fall asleep, and she got up and climbed a tree. She looked at the starry sky with indifference, and tried to understand herself, her attitude towards Sasuke and the latter's behavior with Naruto. She noticed that the mission was stressing not only her and Uzumaki, but also the Uchiha. It seemed that out of the four of them, only Sakura was blooming and smelling, giving everyone rays of happiness and joy. The girl caught someone's shadow out of the corner of her eye and prepared a kunai to attack. "Calm down, it's me," Sasuke's voice rang out. "Can't sleep?" "Yes," Ino nodded. Her heart began to beat treacherously. He was so close, but at the same time unimaginably far away. Did she love him? Yamanaka still hadn't figured it out. "Do you like Naruto?" the guy asked unexpectedly. "What?" The kunoichi was somewhere in the clouds, or rather in the fog of uncertainty, and could not concentrate on the question. "Oh yeah, are you sure?" The Sharingan bearer looked at the blonde. "Do you like me?" With each word he came closer and closer, which caused only indecent thoughts to creep into her head. It seemed that Ino had stopped thinking. However, on the periphery of her consciousness, a memory of the night flashed when Naruto combed her hair. Softly, tenderly, carefully. And the girl woke up. "Sasuke, are you out of your mind?" Yamanaka managed to pull herself together and push the brunette away from herself. Uchiha exhaled and pulled away. "Good night, Ino," he said and jumped down. "What just happened?" The fifth student asked herself, looking dumbfounded at the place where the guy of her dreams had once sat a moment ago. That night the moon was shining brighter than usual, so the scene that had happened on the tree could be clearly seen by anyone who was not too lazy or who also could not sleep. For example, like Uzumaki, in whom an incomprehensible rage flared up at Sasuke, reinforced by anger that had not passed at the last, Uchiha, as the demon fox put it. Fortunately, this was the last day of their journey. Tomorrow they would already be in Suna. Chapter 6. Help from a friend. Despite their desire to get to Sunagakure as quickly as possible, 4 Konoha members and 2 escorts from the sand village were caught in a sandstorm and were forced to while away the hours in one of the caves. It was dirty and dusty, which made Ino frown with displeasure, but she said nothing, so as not to show herself to be too pampered. Sakura was silent, and she would be too. "Sorry, if we had come earlier, we would have reached the village by now," apologized one of the Suna members with slightly reddish hair. He was shorter than his comrade by half a head and had a more good-natured face. "It's okay," Uzumaki responded encouragingly, shaking off the stuck grains of sand. "You don't set the weather, after all. How long will the storm last?" "It should subside in a couple of hours," answered the Sand Jonin, the one who was taller and more reserved. No one else said anything. Sasuke had gone somewhere deeper into the cave. Uchiha had successfully ignored the warning not to go too far. Sakura decided to tag along. The groom didn't object, but he didn't feel particularly happy about his company either. The 2 Sand Jonin were quietly talking to each other, and the newly minted Uzumaki Yamanaka couple were sitting on the warm stones in awkward silence. That is, Naruto seemed to have gone into his subconscious, and Ino for some reason felt uncomfortable. Yesterday's incident with Sasuke, although nothing out of the ordinary had happened, was still a little tense. And this despite the fact that she didn't know that Naruto was aware of his friend's sudden behavior. Uzumaki, for some reason, didn't say anything. In fact, he hadn't said a single word the entire morning, having gone deep into himself. However, his short dialogue with the Tsunite gave hope that the guy had not yet forgotten how to talk. Therefore, Yamanaka decided to have an unpleasant conversation. Hiding it from him seemed wrong to her. Although it would seem she should have felt something similar in relation to the same Sakura, for example. After all, the blonde had been friends with Haruno longer. Does this friendship exist now? The kunoichi mentally asked herself. I wonder how Naruto will react? Is it worth telling him at all if nothing happened? The girl still doubted, watching the Jinchuriki with his eyes closed from under her brows. She always dreamed of a family, that she and her husband would have simply wonderful relations. And even though her wedding was not a fairy tale, not the way the blonde dreamed, and her husband turned out to be not quite the one, plus it was not out of love, but some ghostly hope that they could still work out still existed. For this reason, Ino decided that the scales were still more inclined to the tell the truth. Mark. Naruto, are you okay? The girl began somehow incorrectly. At least, that's what it seemed to her. The guy opened one eye and looked at his companion. For a moment, she thought he looked at her with some kind of condemnation, and even a little offended. However, he quickly looked away and shrugged his shoulders vaguely. You're quiet today, Yamanaka continued cautiously, fearing something incomprehensible. This Naruto clearly caused bewilderment and confusion in her. No, she definitely liked the blonde when he was cheerful and positive. And looking at the dejected and gloomy Uzumaki, Ino really wanted to see him smile again. Just for him to smile. The girl caught herself on this strange and stupid desire when the shinobi finally deigned to speak. I was just thinking. Don't worry about it. It sounded terribly cold and emotionless. Was he really capable of such a thing? A wave of indignation and anger rose up in the blonde from somewhere. Was this how he told her not to meddle in his affairs? No way. If she wanted to pry or find out something, then Ino would definitely achieve it. And it didn't matter that all sorts of Uzumaki Naruto were against it. What do you mean? Don't worry about it, she hissed angrily. Have you completely lost your mind, huh, Uzumaki? By the way, I'm your wife. And I have the right to know what's going on in your head. I can see that something is wrong. The Jinchuriki sighed. It took him an incredible amount of effort not to answer her. How could she help when he himself did not really understand what was happening to him? The intelligence in Kurama's face told him that she could actually help. However, Naruto did not want to talk to her about it, or to anyone for that matter. Kyuubi doesn't count. Unfortunately, it was impossible to get rid of the appendage in the form of the demon. By the way, this very appendage very sharply expressed its dissatisfaction with how the guy mentally characterized it. Uzumaki advised him to go to Rikudo, which made the fox offended and shut up, painfully sending his hot chakra through the shinobi's veins, unpleasantly burning from the inside. Brilliant! And this one is making some kind of accusation against me. The guy got angry. Ino, who never waited for an answer, glared at her husband. It was clear that he would not say anything. Well, she would try a little later, but he would not back down so easily. Perhaps a plan to extract the truth would have matured in her head, but Sasuke and Sakura, who had come at the wrong time, destroyed it at the very beginning. The Uchiha approached the Jonin. It seems the storm has died down, he nodded towards the exit. Can we go? Yes, we can leave in 10 minutes, the red-haired shinobi agreed, and the guys took their bags. Yamanaka peered into the distance of sands and dunes, and she wanted to be home, in her native Konoha, where she and Naruto were already improving their relationship. I wish this mission would end already, Gaara rubbed his temples tiredly. This was the 11th snake bite today. And although the treatment was simple, there simply weren't enough medics. And let's face it, they were all far from Chiet and especially Tsunade. Plus, there were the frightened relatives, and the victims themselves were panicking ahead of time. Someone was always trying to look into his office. What were they waiting for? Assurances that everything would be fine? That their relatives would definitely be cured? Of course, he was the head of the village, but he wasn't all-powerful, really. Some things were simply beyond his power, and he wasn't going to make such stupid and rash promises. Gaara, of course, thought that they would save everyone, but anything can happen, he wasn't going to make them. Irritably putting aside the letters from the patient's relatives, the guy clasped his hands and stared at one point. The window in the office was open, but it was still stuffy. The air was warm, the head of the sand had long since gotten used to it, but now he wanted a cool breeze. There was a knock on the door. The boy gave an indifferent, "Come in," and looked away. That cactus in the corner should be moved. Kazekage-sama, the Konoha shinobi have arrived, one of the jonin informed him. The thoughts in his head did not want to stop and line up in one orderly row, and therefore Gaara was thinking extremely slowly today. He looked at the ninja waiting for his answer. How long ago? He seemed to understand what they were talking about, and at the same time the meaning eluded him. A few minutes ago. They got caught in a sandstorm, so they were delayed. The jonin was still saying something, but Sabakano was no longer listening to him. Finally, his mind cleared up, or was it the breeze that blew, albeit warm, but still sobered him up? It didn't matter. The Konoha people had arrived, which meant his torment, or rather his endless complaints, would come to an end. Gaara nodded slightly for the sake of decency and let the jonin go. However, before he had time to relax and think again about where he could move the lonely plant standing in the corner, his best friend entered the office. Although he and Naruto did not communicate as often as he would have liked and lived in different villages, for some reason the boys understood each other without words and caught each other's mood. And now, when Uzumaki, along with the rest of the group, appeared before him, Gaara realized that there was tension and gloom around this foursome of ninja. I am glad to see you. The Kazekage broke the seemingly ringing silence. Sakura-san, Ino-san, you can find Temari in the next office. She will show you the way to the hospital and explain everything in detail. The girls nodded and hurried to the exit, but, albeit fleetingly, the head of the sand managed to notice how the blonde looked back at Naruto. Her gaze showed concern and some uncertainty. However, it happened quickly, and a moment later the kunoichi disappeared behind the door. Sasuke-san, I hope you and Naruto will help us fix the problem. My brother Kankuro is working on it now. You will find him in the third office on the first floor. Gaara informed Uchiha, and the black-haired shinobi realized that he was simply being sent away. He chuckled and proudly left. How are you doing, Naruto? Sabakuno asked a couple of minutes later, having lost all his official tone. Finally, he was able to relax in the presence of a friend. Everything is fine, the Jinchuriki muttered, not taking his eyes off the window and looking through Gaara. Want to go for a walk? The red-haired guy suggested, getting up from the table. He realized that the Konoha guy would not say anything here, and Naruto, as if confirming his thought, only nodded and trudged after Sabakano. They got outside pretty quickly and headed to the most deserted place, which was training ground number 7. This number brought back memories of his former team in the Blonde. Everything was simpler then. You could fool around, promise Sakura-chan the stars and the moon from the sky, the sun on a plate, a living Sasuke. Yes, back then it seemed possible, right, and romantic, probably, too. Yes, it hurt when Sakura-chan didn't reciprocate, and only hit back, but for some reason that made him want to please her even more, to win her love. And now love is much, much worse than in childhood. Maybe we'll even open our own shinobi academy. Naruto caught his friend's words sliding on the periphery of his consciousness. Naruto? Can you hear me? The Kazekage looked at him worriedly. Maybe you should tell me what happened. And Uzumaki did. He laid out everything, starting from the issuance of the mission and ending with the night incident, naturally, not forgetting to mention that he married Ino. Of course, they agreed not to tell, but she was his best friend. Although it was not even about that, the Jinchuriki simply suspected that he was on the edge. Just a little more, and he could break down, lay everything out in full, for example, to the same Sakura. So let Gaara be better than Haruno. And Naruto himself would not have figured it all out, but he told someone alive, to which Kurama snorted resentfully, but still, A demon is a demon, and a person is a person, and it immediately became easier. There. When I see Sasuke, I just want to hit him. Uzumaki finished his dramatic story. Are you angry because he is marrying Sakura-san? Or because he almost kissed Ino-san? Asked the head of the sand, sitting right on the dry ground, which did not correspond to his position. Both. Howled Naruto, running his fingers through his light hair. This is wrong, but I don't know what to do. Maybe you should just talk to Ino-san instead of avoiding her? Gaara suggested the obvious. After all, women understand this much better than us. Well, I feel a little awkward, the guy scratched his chin. I really shouldn't have seen this. Maybe I'm angry that Sasuke did all this behind my back? But he wouldn't do such a mean thing. I guess. Although I'm not so sure about that anymore, the shinobi added more quietly, remembering that the Uchiha hadn't said a word about his marriage to Sakura, whom Naruto loved. It hurt from the realization of betrayal. Although against the backdrop of past events, the war that had passed and the departure of the last representative of the once noble clan from the village, it should have faded, because it seemed so insignificant. But everything was over, now it was calm, peace and quiet had come, there was time to think, about yourself? To arrange your life? Or was the betrayal so painful because it affected him personally? And not the entire village as a whole? Databeo. How complicated it all is. Uzumaki closed his eyes and plopped down on the ground, putting his hands behind his head. Of course, the situation is very confusing, Gaara noted seriously. However, I think the best option would be to tell Ino-san everything. At the moment, she understands you better than anyone. I don't know this, sad notes slipped into his friend's voice, but I always thought that a wife is her husband's support, his pillar and advisor. Ino-san is a smart girl, a talented kunoichi and just a good person, judging from Shikamaru's stories. The name, Shikamaru, was pronounced with some coldness. Naturally, the future brother-in-law, although worthy of respect and trust, still caused some rejection. That's why I think that talking to her won't hurt you. You're probably right, Naruto said slowly, getting up. Yes, you're right, Gaara. I don't know what came over me. It seemed like the gears in his head were turning and some idea was appearing. Thank you, friend. And the Jinchuriki, clearly in high spirits, rushed off towards the hospital. The Kazekage smiled. In fact, he had done practically nothing, he had only given advice. Maybe in matters of the heart, sometimes just a conversation, just help from a friend helped. Gaara was also glad. Such everyday and, perhaps, for someone ordinary things caused a certain trepidation in him. He really was a normal person who had a friend who needed him. And although the guy did not fully understand all this confusion, he was ready to support Naruto at any moment. Gaara looked at the sun, which was at its zenith. It was incredibly hot, but now he did not feel stuffy, because Uzumaki always brought with him a cool wind of foliage.